Writing a birth plan is not about trying to control your birth. The real reason you need a birth plan is because the very process of writing one is actually a tool to motivate you to get educated about your birth options and will inevitably prompt you to ask your medical provider questions, important questions about their philosophy and practices for birth, and can be a way to make sure that you've hired the right person to support you at your birth. And writing this plan does not need to be overwhelming or hard. In fact, stay to the end of this video where I show you where you can download a free birth plan template that can make this process simple and fun. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kelly, and on this channel, I post weekly birth tips to help you get inspired, educated, and empowered for your birth. Let's dive in. The process of writing a birth plan is about creating a vision for your birth, but also learning not to hold on to it too tightly. Because as you dive into this process, you're going to learn that there are a lot of choices that you will have to make during your birth, and not all of them you can control. But you do have agency over what you consent to and what you refuse to allow to happen to your body and to your baby's body. As you write your birth plan, you're going to learn what aspects of birth you actually do have some control over and which aspects you don't. For example, you have complete control over who you decide to hire to be your medical provider for your birth. You don't have control over when you go into labor or things like your blood pressure. Sometimes things happen that are outside of your control, but knowing the difference between where you have agency and where you need some flexibility is really critical to being able to feel satisfied and empowered in your birth. Fair warning, the more you learn, the more you're going to have questions for your medical provider about how they manage the different stages of labor. And not all providers are the same. There is not a one-size-fits-all procedure for birth. So as you're going through the process of writing your birth plan, you might learn some things about yourself. For example, during the pushing stage, you might learn that one of the best ways to reduce the risk of a severe tear during pushing is to avoid pushing on your back. Well, that might prompt you to go to your medical provider and ask him or her if they will allow you to push in a different position besides on your back. If the answer is no, and that is something that you feel passionate about, you are with the wrong provider. It is time to fire that provider and find someone new. Now, here's the thing. You don't have to directly fire your provider. Just call the front desk and have them send your medical records to your new office. You don't have to be super confrontational about it. It's really common to change your providers up until very late in pregnancy. And listen, this process of writing a birth plan, it does take some time, and it's an evolving document that will change as you learn and as your pregnancy goes on and you learn more about the realities of your options. My advice is to begin the process of writing your birth plan during your first trimester. I know, it's sometimes the last thing you're thinking of when you're just feeling nauseous or tired, and I'm not saying that you have to have a set in stone document, but begin to start looking into what birth looks like and understanding the common interventions that might be offered to you and the benefits and risks of each. Doing this will help you figure out which questions to ask your provider. And the sooner you can be more confident that you're with the right provider, the easier it'll be for you throughout the rest of your pregnancy. So for example, if you need to fire your provider and find someone new, ideally you would do it sooner rather than later, although it's never too late. If you can't begin your birth plan writing in your first trimester, my advice to you though is to not prepay for any services ahead of time. with your hospital or with your OBGYN until you are 100% confident you're going to stick with that provider. And so pay for the services that have been rendered, but don't pay any anticipated fees right off the bat until you've had a chance to fully explore your birth options. I just don't want you to get stuck with a provider that's not a good fit just because of money. Knowing your options can actually help you reduce the number of birth interventions that you consent to. And what we know for a fact is that birth interventions do not come without risk. And so the fewer unnecessary birth interventions that you consent to, the more likely you are to improve the outcomes for yourself and for your baby. Your birth plan isn't just about the birth. It helps you think through the things that can happen during pregnancy, as well as immediately postpartum, and some of the newborn interventions that might be offered or just given to your baby if you don't consent or decide which procedures and medications your baby would want. You don't know what you don't know, and the birth plan can help you see what's coming and what decisions to make. Creating a birth plan goes way beyond you and your birth. If you are creating and advocating for a birth plan that is focused on a more humanistic approach to birth, leaning on and trusting that your body can physiologically birth your baby in a low-risk situation, the more you advocate for a birth that is humanistic and in this way, the more pressure you're putting on the medical healthcare system, which needs some pressure to be able to revise their outdated policies that are no longer based on scientific evidence. What I mean by this is all scientific evidence shows that if you are a low-risk pregnancy, you should be able to eat and drink during labor. However, many hospitals have not taken the time to revise this policy because it's an inconvenience. They don't have time, and it doesn't really matter anyways. Well, the more people like you who are advocating for their wish to eat and drink during labor, the more likely the system is going to listen, because you are a customer and the hospital and your providers are a business. And so help with the supply and demand by using your voice, and help women all over the world who may not have the same influence or voice that you do to push back on a system that is broken. Whew, that's intense, but you can see I feel really passionate about that, and I believe that it will take many voices to be able to make change in this system. And so do your part. It's good for you, good for your baby, and good for all birthing people across the world. One of the hardest parts about writing a birth plan is just simply getting started. It can be intimidating to know what to say or what to put on or what it should look like, which is why I've created a free birth plan template that you can download and have access to through Canva. Canva is a free platform that you can use to design, edit, and print out your own beautiful birth plan template that is concise and comprehensive and really super easy for your providers to scan through and read so that they like reading it as well. I spent a lot of time on this template. As a birth doula, I've seen some really good templates and some really bad ones, but none of them were really all that perfect in my opinion. And so I went ahead and just created one of my own and want to give it away to anyone and everyone for free so that this process of writing a birth plan can come a little bit easier to you. And so click on the description below to link you to where you can download the free template. It comes with a checklist as well. So I'll walk you through every single possible intervention that could be offered at each stage of labor so that you even know like what it is to research. And I'll give you tips on how to find evidence-based research for the benefits, risks, and alternatives for each and every procedure. And if you're still with me, please like and subscribe to my channel, show your support, and keep coming back each week for my new video, which posts on Thursdays.